I'm Paula Eddie Wilcox, and welcome to this episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at the leadership journey of our guest and what unique traits bring them to be the leader they are today. Who knows what we're going to discover together, so I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to this episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. I am so excited to welcome Dani Wallace. Hello!
Paula, I am so excited to be here. I can't even tell you. Do you know what? We're recording these podcasts. And I was like, what have I got on this afternoon? Podcast with Paula. Yes. I knew that I was gonna have a really great moment in the day. So I've been really excited to speak to you.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks for that. That's given me a real boost of a Monday. Give away the day that we're recording it. Doesn't matter. All good. Well, Dani, what can I say? I don't know that I could do you justice as I'm introducing you rather, but I will do my best. I think if anybody knows you, they do know it's time to show up, wise up and rise up. What can I say? Whenever I see those three sort of things together, it just gives me a big smile and makes me go a bit goosebumpy, because you're all about helping others to be their best selves. I don't know if I can say it any better than that. Does that work for you?
It totally works for me. And do you know what, Paula? You can come around with me everywhere and just introduce me to everybody like that. I'd be really happy.
Oh, fantastic. Well, in that case, we'll have to make sure we share this far and wide so everybody gets to know how brilliant you are. Uh-huh. And, I just feel so privileged to have crossed paths with you, Dani. I don't know any other way to say it, really. I mean, I first came across you at Womanifest 2020. Doesn't that feel like a millennium ago?
At the cusp of the COVID situation. In fact, I think it was one of the very last events that I was a part of or attended or was with people at, because I think it was the week later we were thrown into lockdown.
We were, exactly.
Wow. And I know feels like a lifetime ago.
Jodes and Roxy at the time were like, are we going to make it? Are we going to make it? Just by the seat of the pants. And it was an amazing event that introduced me, frankly, to a whole new world of amazing women, empowering other women to do fantastic things. And honestly, Dani, to just follow your journey over that time has just been incredible to see the different things you're doing. And, I would love to just give you a couple of minutes just to share what it is you do in your words, because I want people to know the gem of a person that they're listening to right now.
Oh, Paula. So it's funny when I introduce myself because it's very audacious. So I'm Dani Wallace and I am the Queen Bee, which is ridiculously audacious. It's an audacious statement to make, but actually it's much less about me and it's much more about the people within my community and wider community that I serve. So taking up space, using your superpower hidden in plain sight is what I help people do. So people from marginalised communities, marginalised genders, marginalised cultures, helping them take up space in the world by speaking. So my big job is helping people speak about what it is they do in a really compelling way so that they can create more influence, more impact, and as a kind of byproduct, more income. But I do that by putting on events, and I do that by speaking online. I'm a motivational speaker, I'm an author. And what's really, really, really important to me is to share that success can happen in community, that we all do well when we all do well. So it serves us to root for each other. It serves us to lift each other up. And that's the real sort of core central belief to everything that I do, is that my success isn't really about me. My success is about seeing the people around me and their success. And that's what I've really made my life's work now, is lifting people up and helping people take up space in the world so that they can have that. And by default, helps me out too. So it's a win-win. We all do well when we all do well.
Do you know what? I love the way you've just described that. All about that kind of community effort. And I've just remembered I didn't pull my microphone forward. What a rookie error. How terrible of me. Got all the gear and no idea. Well, not quite. Anyway.
Sounds like me most days, Paula.
Yeah. So, it just that whole piece around, lifting each other up and, if somebody succeeds in the community, that everybody benefits from that success
Right.
because it does knock on to others. It does
Interestingly,
inspire others.
yeah, Paul, interestingly, I've worked in spaces whereby the leaders of the community don't like it when members of the community do better than them. Like, I find that as a concept absolutely mind blowing. Like,
Yeah.
I want everybody in my community to do far better than me. I get to turn up to their parties then. I don't have to put the parties on anymore. Gives me a bit of a break. Everyone could be more successful than me, and I'll turn up, cheerlead you on, give myself a little breather.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. Do you know what? That's so interesting, Danny, because one would hope that I'd left that behind in the corporate world in
Mhm.
terms of, we talk about leaders being threatened by team members, for example, that report to them
Yes,
being better at something than they
right.
are, finding that a threat, that kind of thing. What you've just described is that kind of thing, but happening out in the community as well. And that really makes me sad because for me, it's always been about helping others rise up, as you so
Yeah.
brilliantly put it, to be the best they can be. And this was well before I ever thought I wanted to be a coach. And I've been doing that for a long time now. But it's just that want for others to succeed and enjoying that moment with them and
Mhm.
celebrating it with them and not seeing it as a threat. It's that sort of approach has always been really bizarre for me.
It is, it's really fear-centric, really
Mm,
fear-centric, and I've experienced this in a lot of different ways, even really recently, that there are, people within the business space who are scared about people from marginalised communities breaking through because they think that that leaves no room for them. So then they
mm,
start to get scared and start to kind of not go on the attack per se, but start to shout very loudly about the difficulty that they find themselves in. I find how this fear of other people doing well is really hindering the growth of us
yeah,
as a wider entrepreneurial community. And this happens in, like you said, we thought, or I thought certainly, that when I left corporate, I would leave that kind of thinking behind,
yeah,
but it just kind of spills out this fear that if other people are doing better, it means that there's less space for me. And actually, if
mm,
we understand that there's space for everyone,
yeah,
that, you might be the ripest, juiciest peach in the world, but guess what? Not everybody likes peaches. They might like an apple or a banana or a melon or an avocado. I don't know.
mhm,
But as long as we surround ourselves with all these different types of people, that if you do happen to turn somebody off, you can point success in somebody else's direction. And isn't that dead good? I just think that that's a powerful position to be in and not a fearful one. But alas, we find in certain pockets of the internet, certain pockets of entrepreneurialism, certain pockets of corporate, that just happens. And part
mm,
of sort of my MO is, well, how do we get past that? How do
yeah.
we all do well when we all do well? And talking to you about that today is just a real honor.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And I think you're absolutely right. How do we get past that? Because I think as leaders, we're all leading ourselves, never mind leading in a job role, if we're
Yeah,
called a business leader or a senior leader in a corporate, whatever, forget the titles.
yeah.
To first and foremost, we're leading ourselves in our own lives. So really, we have that kind of duty to ourselves to help ourselves get past that if we're struggling
Mhm,
with that. And if we are struggling with that, to look into, okay, so what is it that's I'm struggling with here? What is it I'm fearful of, as you so
mhm.
eloquently put it? Because that fear sort of comes in much more than people A want to admit, but B realize that any of that's even going on. They're just like, well, it just makes sense that I should be the leader and I should be better at all this stuff.
Right. If
You
I'm the
know,
leader, therefore I should be the best
yeah,
even.
yeah, yeah. And for me, I'm part of a fantastic team at the moment, and in one of the contracts that I have, and it's just incredible to me. I feel like I'm in the wrong team because everybody's so amazing, and you have that little tiny bit of
Is it
imposter
this good?
syndrome.
Is it this good? Like, you're all so dead good.
Yeah,
I had a team meeting
yeah,
this morning where I just sat back and watched them in awe. I
yeah.
was like, wow, you lot are amazing. Like, I felt like I was the weakest link.
That's it. We'll have to have a little session on imposter syndrome between us, won't we? But it's
Right.
just reveling in the fabulousness that it presents you, the
Yeah.
inspiration, the motivation, the rich conversation. There's so much to be had
Mhm.
from all of that greatness that's in the room.
Right.
And I love
Absolutely.
that. Absolutely love showing up for that.
Mhm. Really, 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 really got me excited, and also, like you say, a little bit scared this morning on that team call. Just watching everybody, like they were working with each other, they were doing the things. I thought, oh, you could take me out of this call, and it probably wouldn't be to the detriment of the call. And actually, it was a real light bulb moment for me. Is I'm leading my team right, because they were still looking to me for the kind of final sign off on everything, but actually they were making it happen in
Mm,
protection of me, so that I had the bandwidth to do the things that I'm really great at, which is the showing up, key person of influence, making all the moves, sort of thing, the schmoozing. I'm a dead good schmoozer, Paula. But actually to see them all in action, and I've really recruited against my weaknesses as well. So I understand that details, documentation, all of that are not areas of A, joy for me, and
mm,
B, areas of great strength in general. That some people would argue that I'm very intelligent. I would find myself melting in a puddle of tears if someone presented me with an Excel spreadsheet. So then to see my team like go so hand in hand with each other, to
yeah.
get excited like Furbies about the things that they're doing, that they're really excited about, I know nothing about. Stand outside of that. You could take me out of that situation, it would all still happen, but I'm just kind of guiding the ship from the top now. And
Mm.
a real pinch myself moment today from a leadership perspective.
Yeah. Oh, I love hearing that stories like that, Dani, because it does make such a difference, because you get to step into a totally different space,
Yeah.
exactly where you're meant to be in this moment. And I would argue that if they took you away as the rudder, it would perhaps go for a little while, but then something would go a
Yeah,
bit
for
askew. So,
sure.
there's something in that you've all got a right place in that team to
Yeah.
collaborate and work together. That's amazing. So I'm going to ask you the question that I ask all our fabulous guests, and that is, what's your leadership journey that's led you to where you are now?
It's really, for me, I mean, flipping heck, it sounds really glib, but it's been a roller coaster. Because I didn't understand myself as a leader until I became a manager.
Mm,
So I have worked in performance for over 25 years. It's always been my job to lead a room. So, and interestingly, and I will talk about this another time in another podcast, but because of how I grew up, I had to read and orchestrate a room from a very young age in order to keep
mm,
myself safe. So, as a performer, what is now one of my greatest strengths was actually a survival tool very, very early on. So, I had to be able to read everybody's emotions in the room in order for me to act accordingly and then command the situation through humor or performance or being nice or kind or accommodating or whatever. I needed to read a room and then act accordingly in order to make people do what I needed them to do in order for me to be safe.
yeah.
And that was a baptism of fire for a child, but one that I was able to then mold and turn into a skill
Mm,
later on down the line. So I think that for me as a leader, being able to read the room has been a really important skill, to be able to look around and say, okay, I can see by somebody's body language or nuance or what they're saying that they may not be happy, or that they're related, or that they need some validation, or they need something from me that I'm able to provide for them. And allowing myself to watch and listen and then act accordingly has served me far better than being reactionary. So I think that was one of the first things that,
mm,
as a leader, I was able to uh, harness with intention, is reading the room.
yeah.
The other thing that I needed to learn was that managing and leading are two very different situations
Yeah.
that not everybody has the privilege or opportunity to be able to do. So we often, I think often in corporate, people look at managers and think, oh, I could do their job with their hands up, like with my hands tied behind my back. And if I was in their position, I would do this, this, and this, not understand how many moving parts that leader actually has to keep in motion in order to make everybody happy, both up and down the line. So I learned about leadership when I was working in corporate. And when I say learn about leadership, I mean in a more visceral sense, in a more learned way. Like, what are leadership styles, for example? What are personality styles? How do you recruit and lead and train against people's strengths as opposed to trying to amplify their weaknesses? You know, if you look at a performance improvement plan, for example, and you can see that somebody doesn't have a really good, I don't know, customer service, not very good bedside manner, but actually they're great analysts. Take them off the phone and give them a different job. It doesn't mean that they're bad for the company. It means that they're not in the right role for them. So are they a bad person? Are they a good person? Are the intentions right there? Or are they a details person? Are they an analyst? Can they analyze something within your business that actually is going to really, really help you? Do they need to be customer facing? Absolutely effing not. But being able to study different people's abilities and be able to recruit or build your team around that was another stage in my journey. And what I found is within work, within employment, often people that work out on shop floor or on the factory floor or on the call center floor will often need to be kind of told what to do. They don't necessarily want to be led, because if you're led, there's a degree of autonomy that will land on them at some point where they have to make decisions. So it's easier when you're in employment to be told what to do, make your money, go home. It's easier to disassociate yourself from outcomes and this is not if you're not being led or managed correctly.
Yeah.
But it's easier as an employee to dissociate yourself from outcomes if you aren't actively involved in decision making. So the expectation is the box in which we've been put for our whole education, which is turn up, conform, go home, conform, turn up, conform, go home, conform.
Yeah.
Being put into that box, turn up and do as you're told, means that the expectation when most of our youngsters get out into the working world is we need to be told what to do. Now that's managing. That is somebody telling you what to do. That's being a foreman. And in this day and age, we need to be harnessing the power of creativity, especially, you know, you and I met at the beginning of COVID. We have viscerally seen how leaders have risen and fallen during that time, whether they've encouraged a culture of creativity, of flexibility, of understanding, instead of just doing things the way we've always done. And I found that really difficult in an employment space to tell people what to do. They knew what to do. They didn't need me to tell them what to do. I didn't want to tell them what to do. I wanted to create a culture of leadership, but they didn't want to be led. They wanted to be managed. So there was always this sort of dichotomy within my employed life where I knew that I had to tell people what to do, but I didn't want to. I knew that I wanted to help them make decisions, but they didn't want to. And so we were locking horns all the time. Actually, what I learned about myself was that I'm probably better just running my own business than I am being told what to do. As a survivor of domestic abuse, being told what to do, I found was really triggering for me. I didn't know till I'd done a lot of reflection. Leading was something that I'm really, really good at, but people around me in employment didn't want to be led. They wanted to be managed. So actually, if you took me out of that scenario, put me where I'm driving from a place of joy, all of a sudden I'm able to lead. I'm able to get people excited about what it is that I'm doing. I'm able to look at my strengths and say, okay, I'm going to recruit in against my weaknesses so that I have this really strong, details focused team around me, and I'm really results and ideas led. So they're like this dream team now. And I get to say, here's the idea. What do you guys think? How can we make that happen? Inform me, educate me. I want the outcomes like this. What does that look like, squad? And then they start to make that happen. And that's a really magical spot to be in.
Oh, I love all of that so much in there, Dani, and it's so interesting talking about that sort of differentiation between the management side and the leadership side, because I think a lot of people, especially, you know, earlier on in your career, you don't necessarily know the difference between the two,
Right.
And that whole piece around, you know, direction. certainly since formally becoming a coach, if you like, and it's all supposed to be non-judgmental, non-directive. It's all about giving people that space to think for themselves and do what they want to do to achieve the results that they want to achieve. And they get choices. And, when you first start working with people, what do you mean I've got a choice? I've got a decision to make? Because, I'll just do nothing. Well, that in itself is a decision. So it's reframing all of those kind of things that we've had ingrained into us. You sort of mentioned in passing about, people coming into the workplace and needing to be told what to do. I mean, yes, there's an element when you first come into a new role and, you're learning the ropes, so you do need to be told certain things.
Of course, you can't go in not knowing what you don't know. You press
exactly.
that button over there and the whole thing could fall apart, right?
Or
don't touch that button, babe.
Press the wrong exit button when you're doing an Adobe presentation. Trust me, it wasn't me, thank goodness. The whole thing went down and we were all like, okay, let's go back on then. Silly things like that. But imagine what would be possible if we were all not left to our own devices. I don't mean it like that, because there is an element of some direction and guidance needed. But if more creativity and flexibility was allowed in the workplace, and there was more embracing of ideas and opportunity for that creative space, what could be possible? Because if I think back to my last corporate job, I was lucky enough to move in and out of lots of different roles, over the 12 and a half years I was there. But it was all very, the role's the role, the job's the job, and, you move on to get something different because you sort of master that, and then you're a bit bored and, what else can I do with this? Oh, nothing. Well, let's do something else then. It's so interesting, isn't it? And the mind boggles as to what an organisation could be capable of in terms of untapped talent and creativity.
I have an incredible friend. She's called Sam White, and she works within the insurance industry. And actually, really interesting, what she did was she stepped outside of her role as CEO and hired in a strengths-based psychologist as an experiment, right? This is how outside of the box this incredible human being is, but hired a psychologist to lead the team. And now that team are running better than they ever have before. They feel listened to, they feel heard, they are super productive. They are so invested in the culture, like the core culture and values of the business, that they just turn up, and that all of their boundaries are respected. They have really agreed boundaries within that. You find some successful, I say in inverted commas, businesses where, they're all grinding, but they're all working all the time and they're burning out. Actually, they work within their boundary set, they work within their cultures. And this is through the release hold of the CEO over a well-oiled team. So the team would have to be well-oiled and brought together. But this psychologist, this incredible guy who's kind of acting CEO, is just maneuvering the parts to empower everybody to make informed, empowered decisions. So if they work from home, as long as the work gets done and they work within their KPIs, or even if they're stretching and exceeding their KPIs, then everybody's happy. Then they can work from home. If they need a dentist appointment, then they go and take their dentist appointment. If they need a holiday, is the work done? Take your flipping holiday. And having that sort of, do our teams need to turn up at 9 o'clock every morning and go home at 5:30? If 4 hours of that is spent scrolling on Facebook, that's what I ended up doing when I was in corporate for a while. Is that I was that A, bored, and B, disempowered. I couldn't make any decisions anyway. I was just waiting every day for home time. And how exciting it is when teams are starting to, when this is easy with smaller businesses, by the way. Bigger businesses are quite clunky and there's lots of red tape and legal stuff involved. But I would encourage, listeners, especially of this particular podcast, is to think, how can you be more creative as a leader? How can you allow your team to be more creative, and what are the benefits of doing that for everybody involved? And how can you set that even as a key performance indicator for you as a team?
Yeah, that's a great challenge out to our listeners, Dani, because this is all about sharing our collective experience to help leaders out there, whether it's your life, whether it's a team, whether it's an event, whatever it might be that you're leading. We're all leading something and challenging us to see how we can do that in the best possible way, and picking up fantastic tips and hints from people such as yourself along the way it's so important, because again, it comes back to that choice. Somebody will listen to this. In fact, two different people will listen to this and they'll both have totally different takeaways. We're so unique in the things that we tune into and hear, the bits that pick up and resonate with us most. But then the choice comes in that whatever they've taken away for themselves is how they then choose to implement that to better their own leadership landscape, if you like.
Right.
And it's really exciting to understand that this kind of forum, in terms of a podcast, can have that positive impact for people, but then they've got to make that decision to take action on it. So we're here we're spoon feeding you loads of amazing stuff here. You've got to make that personal choice as the listener to go off and do something with that. And that's the powerful bit. If you choose to go do that, imagine what was possible for you. Incredible. Oh, Dani, fascinating stuff. Oh, there's so much we can talk about, and I'm definitely going to ask you offline about Sam White and the strength psychologist.
You must go and check. You must go and check Sam White out. She is absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, brilliant. Well, that's a tip for our listeners as well. Look, we are super, super lucky because we've got Dani coming back for another 2 episodes with us. So next week, we're going to be chatting about Dani's take on game and leadership. But for now, Dani, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been fantastic learning about how you sort of got to where you are as the leader you are today.
Thank you for having me. I'll see you next time.
You're super welcome. Take care. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. Today, we listen to the leadership journey of our guest and how they got to be where they are today. Now, in the chats, we talked about all sorts of different things, and there are lots of bits and pieces in there that are going to mean something different to each and every one of you. You will all have your own unique takeaways, so I encourage you to do a bit of reflection now and see what this might mean for your leadership moving forwards. I'm Paula Eddy Wilcox, and I look forward to seeing you on Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders, next week. Bye for now.